Amputee Outdoors. I'm your host Glenn, and today we're outside Cle Elum, Washington, out here in the snow. And we're doing the Klondike Derby for the Scouts. And I got a little time here, so I thought I would show you my setup, putting everything together in the snow and what I use to make sure I'm prepared for hammocking in the cold, freezing rain and the snow and the ice and things like that. Okay, the idea here is to keep dry. All right. So, sorry, there's this one over there. All right, so I'm going to get started. Show you first the ridgeline and the tarp, okay? Here we go. Carabiner. That's the tarp setup. Now I need to get the hammock set up. Hang on a second. Well, you can't tell, of course, but I've actually got my hammock set up under the tarp. What I'm going to do to get everything set up with the sleeping bag, the Reflectix, the wool blanket, and the way I'm going to set it up for the night. And then I'll bring the camera in and show you all that up close, right? The thing with camping in the snow, you're up off the ground, so that's good, but you've also got to remember you've got that convection, you've got that air moving around you. You've got to keep yourself insulated properly. All right, so let me get that set up and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, hang on. I've got everything set up here, and you can see the shadow there of my setup and my hammock kind of swinging down low there below it. Let me bring you in close and show you what I've got. So, doing the ridge line with the prusik knots attached there, and then attach the tree up there using, again, a prusik knot just to tension it, and then a prusik knot at that end as well. And of course my descender rings, which is my favorite technique. Keep trying other techniques, but I keep coming back to the descender rings. It's just reliable, it's easy, it doesn't take much effort to do and cinch it up and get the hammock exactly where I want it. So like I said, I keep coming back to the descender rings. Now, one of the things you'll notice is, if you've seen the previous video, I do not have that double layer anymore. I experimented with that and some underquilts, and I could not get something set up that did not give me air gaps underneath. And that was vexing, to say the least. I was vexed and perplexed as to why I had air gaps. So I've gone back to my Reflectix. Now here, a big gray thing you're seeing there is my wool blanket over the ridge line of the hammock, and then attached with a line going from one corner to the other. Just a shock cord and a button sewn there, and that's all I've done. It's very simple. So you get inside the hammock, and I've got this nice protected area here, and my sleeping bag, that's the foot. I got the bags for everything because it's kind of suspended there towards the foot. And my Reflectix, of course. Now what I've done, I've attached to the bottom of the underside of the Reflectix this non-skid stuff. You can get it at hardware stores. It's for putting on your shelves to let your plates and glasses and cups dry. I put it under here, and now what it does is prevent the Reflectix from sliding around. Got the two wings there, okay? Now, I set up last night in the dark, in the freezing rain at another location, and got it set up like that, and I was warm and toasty all night. In fact, I had to open up the sleeping bag and vent out a little bit just to prevent overheating. All right. This is another setup that one of the Scouts has done. This is just a regular old, I went to the Home Depot or Lowe's or Fred Meyer or wherever and bought a tarp and set it up. And again, simple setup. Some lines strung between two trees, Prusik knot, and a loop like that. Very simple, very easy. And his hammock suspended under there, nice and protected. It's big and it's cumbersome, but very effective. Set up. I've got my backpack, my external frame Peak 1, hung from one end of the hammock. I've set up the center guy line here with my two poles just to give me a little bit more room there. And at this end, I've rigged my spare gear that I bring along for the scouts who forget something. My snowshoes and stuff. That's what it looks like from this end. And yeah, that's a branch there. I just marlin spiked the bag with the spare stuff in it. Alright, there's a couple of other guys around here who've also got some hammocks. I'm going to see if I can get those to show off their hammocks too. Hang on. Folks, we're really lucky here today. Here at Amputee Outdoors, I've got my friend Alan here, who is also another assistant scoutmaster. And his setup is, it's a hammock, it's a rainfly, but it's very different in many respects from mine. You know how mine is very DIY, kind of, you know, a little odd. What he's got, I want him to be able to show you what he's got set up here, because it is a really good setup. I've seen it before and I'm really impressed with it. So Alan, could you tell us first about your rainfly?
So my rainfly, it's been a number of years since I bought it. I'm pretty sure this is the Superfly.
Yeah.
It is a winter fly, so it does have permanent doors, which I like because if I don't need them and they're not involved, or not needed, I can actually strap them together underneath the rainfly,
nice.
Keep them out of the way. But more often than not, I'll either just let them drip to provide another drip surface,
right,
or carabiner them together, or in really strong winds, I'll actually stake them out independently. So
okay.
I always carry about 8 stakes.
All right. And so then you've also got these
side tie-outs that if I've got hiking poles with me or just additional cord, I can actually pull the sides out and create a lot of additional
headroom. That must create a
underneath.
lot of extra headroom in there, huh?
It does. And like right now, this is about as high as I will ever have it pitched because I can almost effectively stand up underneath it. It is a still nylon tarp, so it does have some stretch to it when it gets wet. So I do, typically I tend to use knots, and I will almost always use a taut line hitch on my guy lines, so that if I really need to when I get up in the middle of the night, I'll retension it.
Right, okay. Now your gear that you've got hooked up here, that's, it's not a carabiner at that end, is it?
No, it's not. The orange ridge line for the tarp is kind of blinged out with Dutch wear right now.
Okay.
I've got a Dutch hook on the one end to actually just kind of keep it pinned together.
Right.
And then a wasp on the near end to create my mechanical advantage to draw it tight.
Okay.
And then in between, I just have long prussiks that the rainfly attaches to, and the Superfly has small titanium rings on the end of it, so that I would just have a Dutch hook on the prussik that would go to the ring, or I could also use just a stick
to marlin spike it. Right. Yeah. That's a really nice rainfly. Why don't we look at the inside of your tent? I mean, the inside of your rainfly at the hammock. So, folks, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn this off for a second, switch the camera around, and bring it in close. And Alan's going to give us an up-close view of his hammock setup, including his underquilt and everything else. Okay? Just hang on a second.
So one of the things that we found in discussing amongst my group of friends, permanent doors versus detachable doors, was that for those people who could afford to have 2 rainflies, it was almost better to just have one fly without doors and then a fly like this with doors if you wanted it for the winter and wet seasons, just because the fiddle factor of having the detachable doors wound up being something that those folks who had tried it just eventually moved away from. And of course it's an individual thing, your mileage may vary, but for me I'd rather have the doors and pin them up when I don't want them, or leave them home if I don't think I'm going to need them at all, rather than having to put them on or take them off at the site. And then you were asking about the hammock.
Yeah. So this is a big hammock, isn't it?
It's a big hammock. It's a 13-foot long hammock. It's from a company called UK Hammocks out of London, or London suburbs. It's 13 feet long. It's made from a heavier weight, single layer material. It has an integrated bug net for the summer seasons.
Yeah, you can see the zip here that it would attach to.
Yep. It's got its own sort of a foot box design, which I usually don't use the drawstring for, because I find that on the diagonal my feet sort of create the same pouch.
Right.
And I didn't find the cord to be strong enough to actually hold the foot box the way it was designed to be anyways. It does come with integrated pockets that you can have sewn in anywhere along the perimeter that you want. As I've come to get used to my hammock, I don't necessarily love where I had mine put in, but it's a feature that they offered that I do like. It's a good heavy material, even without an underpad or whatnot in it. Supposedly it should be thick enough that you wouldn't have a problem with insects stinging you in the winter, in the summer. But I like that. I also got an under loft, gear hammock from them at the time that I bought it. It was something that I find that I use far more than I ever expected to. Just simply because I love having my stuff up off the ground without it being at the far end of the tree. When I'm laying in my hammock, I can easily reach down and get at my gear when I need to. This way, when I'm in the hammock at night, pretty much everything is off the ground other than my boots and the chair that I'm sitting on right now, which I really only use to put on my boots when I need to or to use as a nightstand. When I'm in the hammock itself, I have gotten used to over the years kind of hanging it at a height that I like so that I can easily sit, get my boots on or off, and still, don't worry about it, still get my feet up off the ground when I'm sitting in here to get stuff done. Right now my ridge line is hanging a little bit lower and a little looser than is typical, but that's really an after effect of the distance of the trees that I'm on right now. My suspension is...
Actually, why don't we go outside and look at that, because I noticed you have some really cool straps.
Yep. Okay, so really briefly, the bug net for the Woodsman XL just kind of tucks up into its own stuff sack. And then here, the hammock actually came with a double descender ring mounting point for your suspension, just to be used standard with the strap.
That's the same thing I use, yeah.
But recently I want to be moving over to the Dutchware beetle buckles.
We get in close and look at that, because those are something that a lot of people are interested in. Now, in working with the descender rings, isn't the descender rings made kind of redundant because of
Absolutely
this?
It is, yes. The only reason that they're still on there is twofold. I haven't done it to remove them yet, which I intend to soon. But one of the side benefits of not having done that is it gives me a separate attachment point for the suspension for my underquilt.
Okay.
So that's a nice little point that's not truly required. But with the beetle buckles, you shouldn't even necessarily need to back it up with a safety stop. But I do, because I'm a little bit heavier, and I have found that I can get some slippage, especially when the straps are new. After you've used them a few times and you have some tree sap on them,
they get pretty sticky, don't they?
Yeah, and it'll work in, and there will be a spot that it lives in. They are not super easy to adjust with any weight on it. You do need to take it off, and in my hammock and the suspension, everything adds some weight. So once it's on there, it's not super easy to move, but I can adjust it in place if I need to.
Right. Now, what kind of straps are you using here?
These are Duchess straps, and it's a mix of Polypro and Dyneema. So it's a blend of that. They are lighter weight than my old Polypro straps were, and longer, because we're in the Pacific Northwest. This size tree is fairly unusual for me to hang from.
Yeah.
It's usually going to be multiple times as thick as this.
Right.
So my straps are 15 feet long, and I still carry supplementary straps if I need to actually...
I think everyone in the Pacific Northwest does. It's just better safe than sorry.
Right. I know that I need at least 30 to 40 feet of strap just to contend with the width of trees and the gaps between sometimes.
Right.
So yeah, the descender rings are auxiliary, but what it does is having them on there means that if I ever have a problem with the hardware, if the titanium should ever break, if it should come off and I should lose it, I still have a backup without needing to fall back.
So if you go like backpacking, you're doing a lot of miles, do you think you would still have both of those, or just one or the other?
No, I would have one or the other. I do have other straps that don't have the beetle buckles on them, and I could go down to those, but unfortunately they're my smaller straps.
Right.
What I would most likely do would be to carry this strap with the beetle buckle with a different hammock that's lighter weight.
Oh, okay.
Because this is not really a backpacking style.
Yeah, this is more of a car camping kind of thing. Yeah.
Or for me, it's my winter weight. Or if I'm going to be out in the hammock for a week, I like this because it's big. It gives me the space that I want. So it's not a war bonnet, but it's kind of in that same team photo.
Yeah, I think it is pretty much. It has a lot of the same similarities, some of the same functions, and some of the same dimensions in many cases.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Well, That is really cool. I like that. So let me get a good photograph, a good film here of this, so that everyone at home can see how you've set this up here. And then everything then is going down, and then this is for the underhang.
This is for the gear loft,
right?
And then
here's
the
your
shock cord here is for. I actually have, because we're winter camping and the temperature was supposed to drop low. I actually have 2 underquilts on right now, so they're just stacked.
Right. It is supposed to get down to low 20s tonight.
Yes, that's what I'd heard as well.
Yeah,
I'd
so
heard 20s
should be pretty frosty.
Yep.
So
and my quilts are a 0-degree incubator from Hammock gear, which I'm not in love with.
why not?
It's a not to say that it's a finicky underquilt, but there is definitely a learning curve involved with it. And there is a fairly narrow margin for the difference between really satisfying and not happy with it.
Right.
The burrow.
Now, which one is that? Is that this blue?
This one.
That's
here.
the blue one there.
No,
yeah.
It's actually black with orange.
Oh, I see. It's in there. Okay.
Yeah, this is the burrow underquilt.
Right.
And then I'm sorry. Yeah, I think it's the burrow and the incubator. I get them confused. I think the incubator may be the underquilt. The burrow is the top quilt.
Okay.
The burrow is the top quilt. Rather, is a 10-degree with the sewn foot box.
Right.
With a bit of overstuff. I think it's an ounce or 2 of overstuff.
Okay.
And that I'm very happy with. It's the first true down top quilt that I've had. And it probably sleeps warmer than the 10-degree.
Really?
Yeah, between the two of them, I'm not. The problem that I have with the underquilt is an asymmetrically cut underquilt, and especially if your legs go off. And I think if it were mated with a different hammock than mine, it would fit better. But my hammock is big,
right,
and the underquilt is designed to be as useful as a 3/4 underquilt because of being differentially cut. And I just find that I pop off the side of it very easily in my feet, and I wish that I could do that.
So when you have the ridgeline set up, what distance do you have that ridgeline set up for?
It's the standard one that they cut. So if it's going to be about 83% of the 13 feet, whatever that calculates out to. The other change that I plan to make to it is I plan to make it a detachable ridgeline.
Right.
What you had seen me with last year was a cocoon that wraps everything.
Right, and the ridgeline gets in the way of that.
It does. It makes that challenging. And in particular, what it'll do is it'll lift up the bottom, and it will compress the down in the underquilt, and that becomes kind of a challenge.
Right.
The other challenge being, because it's compressing as tightly as it can, it sometimes can be hard to close the cocoon.
Right. Right. So that is nice. Let me get a view through here again. There you go. That is a really nice setup you have here.
I mean, it's certainly big enough.
Yep.
My oldest son is now about 6'4", maybe just a little bit under, and he could easily lay in this hammock.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a challenge.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it. Anytime, Glenn. It's been interesting. Pleasure. And I hope you folks at home have learned something else here besides what my usual crazy stuff is. Doing hammocks, it's a very individual thing. And even the stuff that Alan has bought, he's bought very good high-end retail stuff, and yet he's customized a lot of stuff himself. He's done some things himself. He's going to make some of his own changes. Hammocking, unlike tenting, it's all about how you want to hang. So remember, hang your hang. Don't let other people worry about how you're hanging. Just do your thing and make sure you're safe, warm, and comfortable, okay? All right, now, if I'm lucky, we're also going to get another treat here. There's a gentleman who looks like he's got set up one of those three-tree kind of hammock tent things. And if we're lucky, Alan and I are going to go check that guy's hammock out and maybe get that on film for you too, all right? So just hang tight for a little while. So hey folks, we've got a really good treat. I spoke with the folks who have the tent that's suspended between 3 trees, and this is Parker. Thank you, Parker. He's going to show us some of the things about this tree hammock tent. What do you call it?
Well, it's called the Stingray, and it's like 3 hammocks all kind of built into a tent. So it's like a normal hammock, where it ratchets, it has a full rain fly on it.
That is cool. All right, we're going to bring the camera in close, and we're going to walk around with Parker, and he's going to show us all this good stuff, okay? Just hang on a second. Okay, so Parker, tell us about this ratchet system, because that's some pretty impressive hardware there.
Yeah, so what you do when you're setting it up, they have these longer ratchets, and they have a loop in them, and you find the 3 trees and you run them around the trees, and it's pretty easy. And then you put them through the ratchets, and you just have the tent laying on the ground. And you actually go through the ratchets, go through these metal rings on the end of the tent, and then you just you get like 1 or 2 people, and you can pull the ratchet, the cable through the ratchet, and then once you have that, you do all 3 of them and pull them up and start ratcheting them. It's pretty simple.
Okay, so those straps there, do you know what those are rated to? Is that like, those look like towing straps?
Yeah, they are towing straps. I've seen a few of these. The thicker double layer ones can do 2,500. These ones are 880 pounds.
That's pretty impressive. So this camouflage thing over here, this is actually a rain fly, right?
Yeah, this is the rain fly, which we did need. And
yeah.
The way it sets up is you don't have the rain fly on it. And if we'll go over the back here.
Okay.
And there's a little the poles go in this pocket on the side here.
Okay.
This zipper, and they go up in there, and you slide them in.
And that's what gives it that curve.
And they come out up in the front, and it gives you this nice curve.
Okay. So to get into it, you actually go underneath the tent, right?
Yeah, there's a door on the front over here where our cozy spot is, or there's a little trap door underneath it. We'll go head on inside. Oh,
right down there, I see it, yeah. Okay, and then that
leads up into the...
So you can see what he's talking about there, where those poles come into.
It's really cozy, exactly like a hammock, but it gives you a bit more rain protection. Like
right.
In regular hammocks, you have to like put a tarp over it or do something. But this
so
one
how much does this whole kit weigh? It looks huge. Let me back this up here.
It's not exactly a backpacking tent in any way. Maybe 15, well, like 15 pounds maybe. It's just a giant bag.
Right.
But it's really fun for car camping.
Does it sleep 3 comfortably, or is it 2 plus gear?
It's intended for 3 people. Because you have the 3 hammocks in here, but you can kind of put gear up in these corners.
Oh, okay. So it's intended to have 3 people sleeping, pointing together.
We actually have another one where it's just like a big flat hammock.
Yeah.
You can actually string them under here.
Okay.
Those are really fun. And another thing you can use, you can take these rain flies if you're lower down. It's like a huge vestibule.
Right.
And you can just stick all your gear under it and it won't really get wet.
Nice. So, very nice.
A lot nicer than most.
All right. All right, so Parker here has shown us some of the insides of this hammock tent suspended system, and it's really impressive. It's really cool. Yeah. I really like it. So, what do you think of the advantages of this over a tent or a hammock is?
I think some of the advantages, you can get a lot more cover compared to a hammock. The insulation is about the same as a hammock. You get this nice rain fly over it. But you still have a lot of room to put your gear under it and inside of it, and it's quite nice to sleep in.
All right. Thank you very much for showing this. Appreciate it a lot. All right. Well, look at a couple of other things, and then we'll wrap this up. Talk to you in a little while. So I got to make this quick. My battery is running low because of the cold. We're all packed up. You guys got to see 3 different hammocks. Mine, a really nice one, and then that triple tree hammock. I'm getting packed up here, so I'm going to get going. If you've enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe. I hope to see you out on the trail, staying nice and warm in a well-insulated hammock. See ya.